I'm Amy Hunter, and in this video, I'm going to talk about how I've been using Teams for remote teaching. So last spring, when we had to pivot from face-to-face to online, the first thing I did was I took the PowerPoint slides that I had created for class, and I saved them as narrated PowerPoint slides. But instead of saving a single file to be the equivalent of what we did in a classroom of a 75-minute class, let's say, I broke it out into what I called mini lectures. And I did that for a couple of reasons. One is that although I'm capable of talking for 75 minutes straight, I really didn't want to. I'm sure students did not want to listen to me talk uninterrupted for 75 minutes straight. It's really better for their attention, and it makes it easier for them to find the information later because these different files that I'm saving, the titles are a lot more specific. Instead of having two giant MP4 files called Sleep Part 1 and Part 2, for example, I had a whole bunch of smaller files that were a lot more specific in terms of what I was talking about. So I saved these narrated mini lectures as MP4 files. And in my Teams page, which you can see on the right over there, I have a screenshot of it, I had a corresponding channel for every one of those MP4 files. One of the things I also did, you can see that there are dates listed on there. And I did that because I didn't want students to fall too far behind. I was concerned that students would have an inclination to procrastinate listening to these videos or watching these videos, and I didn't want them to fall too far behind. And so I wanted to put dates on there to give them a sense of when we would have covered this material in class. Also there, you'll see that there's some numbers, they're labeled 1.1, 1.2, and so on. The reason I did that is because Teams is weird about how it orders those channels, and just using the dates, things got a little bit wonky in terms of the order in which they were presented. But it really mattered to me the order in which students were watching these videos, and so that's why I put those numbers in, just to make sure that those channels were showing up in the right order so that hopefully students would watch them in that order and things would make a lot more sense. The mini lectures that I did ranged from about 5 to 20 minutes long, just depending on what I had to say on a given topic. So this is what one of the channels looks like. If you were to click on one of the channels on my Teams page, this is what you would get. So on the top, I have the link to Microsoft Stream, which is the MP4 file. Now, what I did in the spring when we pivoted to remote is, as a way to increase engagement, to make sure students were paying attention, I gave them extra credit for posting questions on any of these files. And I had a maximum amount of extra credit points they could get, so they could cap out. And what I found, to my delight, was that students really engaged with this a lot more than I thought they would. They really seemed to take to it really well. I had students who asked way more questions than they needed to get the extra credit. I had students who were completely mute in class who were asking all these questions online. It was a great opportunity to actually have a conversation with some students. They would ask a question, I would look up an answer. It gave me a chance to actually go out and, let's say, find a journal article that answered their question, and I could link the journal article in my response, or I could find a graph that showed them what was going on. But it turned out to be this great way to have a conversation with students about the material. So they got their questions answered, and I also was able to engage them, I think, a little bit more than I would have otherwise. What I'm going to do in the fall is I've changed the structure of my class a little bit to require that students complete a certain number of questions, that they do a certain number of posts or questions on different videos. And then if they do more than the minimum, then they can get extra credit for extra participation. So that is an incredibly brief overview of how I was using Teams in class. Please feel free to reach out if you have questions or comments or want specific directions. The process of saving the file as an MP4 and then posting it to Teams is a little bit convoluted, and I do have step-by-step directions, and I'm happy to share that with you. So if you have questions or comments or want specific directions, please feel free to reach out. Thanks for listening.